What if I told you that the fastest way to lose a man isn't by being too difficult or too demanding, but by having no boundaries at all? Because when you learn the art of setting strong boundaries, you tap into a part of his psychology that triggers deep respect and unstoppable attraction. And that's when he can't help but chase you harder. See, most women think boundaries push men away, or worse, that they make you seem high maintenance. But here's the secret. Men are drawn to women who know their worth. Not the women who bend and break for everyone else's comfort. The ones who stand firm in their values, who say no when they mean no, and who never compromise their self-respect for anyone's approval. Those clear lines you draw become magnetic forces that pull him closer instead of pushing him away. Before I reveal the exact boundaries that make men obsessed, take a second to hit that like button if you've ever been told you're too picky or too hard to please. It helps this message reach more women who need to hear this truth. And you won't miss the next secret I'm about to reveal. And ladies, have you ever wondered why that woman who seems so selective, so sure of herself, so unwilling to settle, always has men fighting for her attention? One day, you see her turning down dates, saying no to plans that don't fit her standards, and refusing to change herself for anyone. Yet somehow, she's the one men can't stop thinking about. What is it about her confidence that drives them wild? Did she just get lucky with better men? Is she playing some kind of game? Or is there something deeper happening in his mind when he meets a woman who won't compromise? Here's the real truth. Most women don't realize this. Men don't chase women who are easy to get or keep. They chase women who challenge them to rise to a higher standard. Their attraction follows three powerful stages that get triggered when you set boundaries correctly. And if you miss what happens in stage 2, you can accidentally become a doormat, even if you started with good intentions. This isn't just another dating tip video. It's a deep dive into male psychology and the hidden triggers that make a man see you as irreplaceable instead of replaceable. Stay with me. I'm going to show you why most women misunderstand what boundaries really are, what actually happens in his mind when you say no, the unseen turning point where he decides if you're a woman worth fighting for or just another person who will bend for anyone. Watch closely until the very end, because stage 2 is where most women give up their power, but it's also the moment you can stand out from every other woman he has ever met. This isn't about being difficult or playing hard to get. It's about understanding how self-respect creates attraction, building genuine confidence, and creating such a strong sense of self that he can't picture finding anyone else like you. Let's begin. Have you noticed how some women seem to effortlessly command respect from men, while others, no matter how kind, caring, or giving they are, struggle to get men to treat them seriously? It's not luck. It's not magic. It's about understanding the psychology behind how a man truly values a woman. Here's the shocking truth. Many people don't understand that men do not respect women the same way women respect men. While women usually show respect through kindness and accommodation, men show respect through pursuit and investment. And here's the fascinating part. If you don't understand this difference, you might give more and more hoping for respect, but actually train him to value you less and less. Think about it. Maybe you met a guy who seemed interested at first. He was calling, texting, making plans, and showing effort. You wanted to be supportive, so you became more available. You said yes to last-minute plans. You rearranged your schedule for him. You avoided bringing up things that might cause conflict. Everything felt smooth until suddenly you noticed a shift. He started taking longer to respond. He put in less effort. He seemed to assume you'd always be there no matter how he treated you. Your instinct told you to try harder, give more, be more understanding. But the truth is, you likely did nothing wrong except one thing. You forgot to show him where your limits were. What really happened is simple. He entered stage 2 of respecting a woman, the stage where men unconsciously test how much you value yourself. This is when his behavior becomes inconsistent, his effort decreases, and his assumptions about your availability increase. And since most women don't see this test coming, they react by giving even more, which actually teaches him that your boundaries don't really exist. Understanding how men process boundaries isn't just helpful, it's life-changing. It lets you see his behavior from his perspective, not yours. You finally understand why some women get treated like queens while others get treated like options. You'll see what creates respect and what destroys it. Most importantly, you'll know exactly how to respond to his tests, so you build attraction instead of becoming invisible. Women who know this secret hold incredible power. They don't beg for respect. They naturally command it. They don't feel walked over and frustrated. They feel confident and valued. And instead of losing themselves trying to keep men, they know how to inspire genuine appreciation without changing who they are. Once you understand what really makes a man respect you, I'll never see relationships the same way again. The power to transform how men treat you starts here. And in just a moment, we'll break down stage 1, the very beginning of his respect journey, and why it determines whether he sees you as someone special or someone convenient. Trust me, you don't want to skip this. Stage 1 is where his first impression of your value gets formed. That initial moment when a man meets you and his mind instantly categorizes you into one of two groups: women who know their worth and women who will bend to keep others happy. But here's the truth most women don't understand. Men don't fall for women based on how accommodating they are. They fall for women based on how much they respect themselves. In this early stage, when a man first encounters you, his brain is constantly scanning for signals. He notices how you speak about yourself, how you handle requests, the way you respond to pressure, and yes, your physical presence. But that's only surface level. What really determines his long-term interest is whether you demonstrate that you have standards. If he senses that you value yourself enough to have non-negotiables, something powerful awakens in his mind. His instincts start working differently. It's not just about wanting to spend time with you. It's about wondering what it takes to earn your approval. When you trigger this curiosity, his brain starts seeing you differently, not as someone he can take for granted, but as someone he needs to impress. That's why men often become more attentive around women who clearly have boundaries, not because they enjoy being told no, but because they respect women who respect themselves. But here's where many women get confused. They think having boundaries means being cold, distant, or hard to please. It doesn't. Boundaries are simply knowing what you will and won't accept and calmly maintaining those standards without apology. The secret in stage 1 is demonstrating your worth through your actions, not your words. When you consistently show that you have places to be, things to do, and standards to maintain, he notices. He sees that your time and attention aren't free, are given to anyone who asks. They're earned by people who show genuine interest and respect. When a man realizes that being in your life is a privilege, not a right, it shifts his entire approach. He stops assuming you'll always be available and starts appreciating the moments when you are. And here's the beautiful part. Even if everything feels perfect in stage 1, this is just the foundation. Because once that initial respect is established, something shifts in his behavior. And this is where most women are caught completely off guard. It's the moment he unconsciously begins to test whether your boundaries are real or just for show. Stage 1 earns his attention, but stage 2 determines his level of pursuit. And in a moment, I'm going to reveal why so many women accidentally fail this crucial test and what you should do instead to make him chase you harder, not lose interest. This is the stage that separates women who get casual treatment from women who get committed pursuit. The stage most women never see coming. Stage 2 is when a man starts testing your boundaries to see if they're genuine or if they were just a temporary act. not because he wants to disrespect you, but because his unconscious mind needs to know if you're truly different from other women he's met. And if you don't recognize these tests for what they are, this is the stage where you can lose all the attraction you built in stage 1. At first, in stage 1, he was intrigued by your self-respect and impressed by your standards. But when stage 2 begins, his behavior shifts from impressed to testing. He starts doing small things to see how you'll react. Maybe he shows up late without calling. Maybe he suggests last-minute plans when you've told him you prefer advance notice. Maybe he starts putting less effort into dates or assumes you'll always be free when he is. These aren't necessarily intentional disrespectful acts. They're unconscious tests to see if your boundaries were real or if they disappear the moment he shows interest. This is exactly where most women panic and make the biggest mistake of their dating life. You notice his change in behavior and immediately assume you were too demanding. Out of fear of losing him, you start accepting things you said you wouldn't accept. You say yes to plans that don't work for you. You stop speaking up when he's inconsiderate. You convince yourself that being flexible is more important than being respected. But here's the brutal reality. The moment you drop your boundaries to keep a man is the moment he loses respect for you. Stage 2 isn't about him losing interest. It's about him checking if your self-respect was authentic or just an act to get his attention. Men unconsciously test boundaries because they want to know if you're a woman who maintains her standards when it matters, or if you're someone who will abandon herself to avoid conflict. The biggest mistake women make here is thinking that maintaining boundaries will push him away. So they give in, hoping it shows they're not difficult. But here's what actually happens in his mind. When you drop your standards, his brain doesn't think, great, she's easy to be with. His brain thinks, her boundaries weren't real. If she doesn't respect herself, why should I? The real key to passing stage 2 is staying consistent with who you are. When he tests your boundaries, you calmly maintain them. Not with anger, not with punishment, but with quiet confidence. You show him through your actions that your standards don't change based on how much you like someone. Your respect for yourself isn't negotiable, regardless of how he responds. When you handle this stage correctly, something incredible happens. His respect for you doesn't decrease, it multiplies. His attraction doesn't fade, it intensifies. Because you've just proven that you're not like other women who lose themselves the moment someone shows interest. That proof is what moves him into stage 3, the stage where he doesn't just want your attention, he actively works to deserve it. Most potential relationships die in stage 2 because women don't understand that maintaining boundaries actually increases attraction rather than destroying it. But if you can navigate this testing phase with unwavering self-respect, you'll create the kind of dynamic where he pursues you more seriously than he's ever pursued anyone. This is the turning point where casual interest becomes genuine pursuit. Stage 3 is where everything transforms. This is when his respect for your boundaries becomes deep admiration for who you are as a person. The testing stops, the games end, and his behavior becomes consistently respectful because he's learned that you won't accept anything less. But reaching this stage doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of consistently demonstrating that you value yourself enough to maintain your standards regardless of his response. When a man enters stage 3, he stops trying to see what he can get away with. Instead, he starts trying to figure out what he needs to do to earn and keep your respect. His attraction isn't just about liking you anymore. He feels genuinely impressed by your strength, inspired by your self-respect, and motivated to be the kind of man who deserves your attention. This is when he naturally starts putting you first without being asked. He plans better dates because he knows you won't settle for low effort. He communicates more thoughtfully because he's learned you won't accept being taken for granted. But here's what makes stage 3 so powerful. His consistent behavior isn't coming from fear of losing you. It's coming from genuine respect for who you are. He's not walking on eggshells trying to avoid making you angry. He's genuinely motivated to treat you well because he sees how you treat yourself. In stage 3, his behavior shifts completely. He starts considering your schedule before making his own plans. He puts real thought and effort into the time you spend together. He introduces you to people who matter to him because he's proud to be with someone who clearly values herself. You're no longer someone he sees when it's convenient. You're someone he prioritizes because he recognizes your worth. And unlike the early stages, his actions now match his words consistently. But this is also where many women make a crucial error. They assume that once a man consistently respects their boundaries, they can relax their standards. The truth is, maintaining healthy boundaries is an ongoing part of any relationship. A man continues to respect you when he sees that your self-respect isn't dependent on how well he's treating you. It's simply part of who you are. It's also important to understand that men in stage 3 crave something that many women don't recognize: authentic appreciation for genuine effort. When he sees that you notice and value his respectful behavior, when you acknowledge his growth and effort, his motivation to continue treating you well only increases. The more secure he feels in your respect, the more naturally he wants to earn it every day. Stage 3 isn't about controlling his behavior or training him to treat you right. It's about being so secure in your own worth that he naturally wants to match your energy. When you consistently demonstrate self-respect, he learns that being with you means being his best self. And when a man associates you with becoming better, with feeling proud of how he shows up, his commitment isn't just emotional, it's aspirational. He doesn't just want to be with you, he wants to be worthy of being with you. This is the stage where attraction becomes devotion, where interest becomes investment, and where dating becomes the foundation of something lasting. Stage 3 is where he stops seeing you as someone he's dating and starts seeing you as someone he can't afford to lose. But before we go further, we need to address something that destroys more relationships than almost anything else: the boundary mistakes that quietly train men to disrespect you. These aren't always obvious or dramatic. They're often subtle patterns that build up over time, and most women don't even realize they're teaching men to treat them poorly. The first mistake is setting boundaries you don't maintain. Maybe you tell him you prefer plans made in advance, but then you consistently say yes to his last-minute invitations. Maybe you say you won't accept being spoken to rudely, but then you let disrespectful comments slide to avoid conflict. When your stated boundaries don't match your actual behavior, you teach him that your words don't mean anything. He learns that your limits aren't really limits. They're just suggestions that disappear when tested. The second mistake is explaining and justifying your boundaries excessively. When you set a boundary, you don't need to convince him it's reasonable or provide a detailed explanation of why you need it. Over-explaining suggests that you're not confident in your own standards. It implies that your boundaries are up for negotiation if he can present a good enough argument against them. Strong boundaries are stated clearly and maintained consistently without extensive justification. The third mistake is using boundaries as punishment instead of protection. True boundaries aren't about controlling his behavior or teaching him lessons. They're about protecting your own well-being and maintaining your standards. When you use boundaries as weapons to make him feel bad for disappointing you, they stop being boundaries and become manipulation. Men can sense the difference between a woman who maintains standards to protect herself and one who uses standards to control others. Another critical mistake is having boundaries that change based on your emotions. Maybe when you're feeling confident, you maintain your standards easily, but when you're feeling insecure or worried about losing him, you start accepting behavior you normally wouldn't. This inconsistency teaches him that your boundaries depend on your mood rather than your values. Strong boundaries remain stable regardless of how you're feeling about the relationship in any given moment. The fifth mistake is not having boundaries around your own behavior. It's not enough to have standards for how others treat you. You also need standards for how you treat yourself. If you consistently overgive, ignore your own needs, or sacrifice your well-being for others, you're showing that even you don't respect your own limits. Men notice when you don't practice what you preach, and it undermines the authenticity of all your other boundaries. And one of the biggest mistakes is apologizing for having standards. When you constantly say sorry for needing what you need or wanting what you want, you're essentially asking permission to have boundaries. This immediately signals that you're not confident in your own worth. You don't need to apologize for having standards any more than you need to apologize for having preferences about food or music. They're simply part of who you are. The truth is, men don't pull away because you have too many boundaries. They pull away because they sense your boundaries aren't genuine or because you use them inconsistently. The solution isn't to lower your standards to keep him interested. It's to maintain them with quiet confidence while continuing to live your life fully. When a man sees that you respect yourself regardless of his response, when your self-worth isn't dependent on his approval, it naturally draws him closer because he recognizes something rare, a woman who truly knows her value. If you avoid these mistakes, you create an environment where respect flows naturally, where he chooses to treat you well, not because he has to, but because he wants to be the kind of man who deserves to be in your life. By now, you understand how boundaries create attraction, what builds respect, and the mistakes that accidentally teach men to undervalue you. But here's the deeper secret to making this dynamic last. It's maintaining your sense of self while building genuine connection. Because having boundaries is just the beginning. Using them to create lasting attraction is the real art. The first thing to understand is this: men don't stay with women because they're easy to please or because they never cause any problems. They stay with women who inspire them to be better while accepting them as they are. That means creating space where he can grow and improve without feeling like is constantly failing to meet your standards. Your boundaries should protect your well-being, not micromanage his behavior. The second key is emotional consistency. In the early stages, it's natural to be very careful about maintaining your boundaries because you're still establishing respect. But over time, what keeps men deeply attracted is knowing that your standards come from self-love, not from fear or control. That means your boundaries should feel supportive of the relationship, not restrictive of it. When he understands that your standards help both of you show up as your best selves, maintaining them becomes something he supports rather than something he resents. Third, understand the power of appreciation balanced with expectation. One of the most common mistakes women make is thinking that having boundaries means never showing appreciation for good behavior. But the opposite is true. When you have clear standards and he consistently meets them, your appreciation becomes incredibly valuable because he knows it's genuine. A woman with no boundaries can compliment his efforts, but her praise doesn't carry much weight because she seems to appreciate everything equally. Another crucial element is flexibility within your standards. Having boundaries doesn't mean being rigid about every small detail of life. It means being clear about what truly matters to you and being willing to be flexible about things that don't affect your core values. When he sees that you can be adaptable about small things while remaining firm about important things, he learns to distinguish between your preferences and your non-negotiables. Finally, remember that attraction is built on mutual respect, not just one-sided boundary enforcement. While you maintain your standards for how you want to be treated, also pay attention to understanding and respecting his needs and preferences. The goal isn't to train him to serve your every wish. The goal is to create a dynamic where both people maintain their self-respect while genuinely caring for each other. Maybe as you hear this, you're thinking about specific situations in your life. Maybe a relationship where you gave too much too quickly. Maybe a pattern of attracting men who don't treat you as well as you deserve. Or maybe you're preparing to date with this new understanding. Wherever you are right now, remember this. Boundaries aren't about keeping people away. They're about creating space for the right people to show up correctly. Before we end, let me remind you of something important. Knowledge without application creates no change. Now that you understand these principles, use them to guide how you show up in the world, not just in romantic relationships, but in every area of life where respect matters. That's how you transform from someone who hopes for good treatment to someone who naturally receives it. If this shifted your perspective on boundaries, attraction, or self-respect, here's what to do next. First, hit the like button to show me this resonated with you and help other women discover this message. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss insights about attraction, relationships, and building the confidence that draws the right people into your life. There's so much more to explore about creating magnetic self-respect. And lastly, leave a comment sharing which boundary mistake you recognized in yourself or how you plan to start honoring your worth differently. I read every comment and love hearing how these